Hello, everyone, guys, gals, and non binary pals. My name is Demigloom, my pronouns are she, her, and welcome to the Middle School GSA. As always, we are not actual middle schoolers. The title is just for fun, and I'm joined by my lovely co host.
Felonious Ferris. Hello, everyone. My pronouns are they, them.
Awesome. Felonious Ferris. We're going to cut to the chase as we have been lately. First of all, I do apologize for people have been saying we want more lighthearted topics, and unfortunately, the world isn't very lighthearted lately. So we promise you the next episode is going to be really fun stuff. It's going to be more fun conversation. But this week, it's going to be pretty serious stuff. Felonious Ferris, what are we talking about?
Today, we are going to be talking about the elections. Very exciting stuff. Certainly doesn't fill my heart with dread, even saying it out loud. But they are coming up. And it is important for us to talk about what's going on and help you be an informed voter. Please vote, by the way.
And why should we vote?
Oh boy, we live in a democracy, and while even though the candidate that you may be voting for may not be your favorite person in the entire world, it is still really, really important to practice harm reduction along with all of your other activism. And I'll go into why if you give me an opportunity to coming up. But yeah, it's just the president has power. It's important that whoever is in power is going to do good things with it.
I described elections on an episode of the Issue Crew last night as a game of tug of war between an evil person and a less evil person, and whoever wins this game of tug of war will have power. And that's a really stupid way of describing it, but I do believe that if you see a game of tug of war between a genocidal maniac and a slightly less genocidal maniac, you probably have some sort of responsibility to join the side of the less genocidal maniac, because ultimately the winner will enact less genocide.
Indeed.
And harm reduction is very important.
Indeed.
Less harm is better than more harm, regardless of whether it's bad. And I understand that the phrase lesser of two evils has become so watered down, and people who have neutral to positive opinions on one of the candidates will describe them still as the lesser of two evils. But I think Felonious Ferris and I both agree that Kamala Harris is unambiguously evil, and we hate Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, personally. Yeah.
Kamala Harris sent people to jail for having weed.
Yeah.
And she's a member of the current administration, which is funding a literal genocide in the Middle East right now.
True.
So, pretty bad stuff.
Pretty bad
Both
stuff.
Both equally bad. Two things of equal evil.
And if you want to hear more about what is going on in Gaza right now, I'd suggest that you look at one of our previous episodes, which we have on the topic, was recently published. Also, just, keep yourself up to date. Please keep yourself up to date. Don't just listen to us to get all of your news about the world. Please. Yeah.
I don't think we have to worry too much about people only listening to us, but that is a good thing to remind people
it's a disclaimer that I need to make every single time.
Check out the sources we link in the description too.
Yeah, that's always a good idea. But I think that it's really, really important that while I do acknowledge that I'm not at all a fan of Kamala Harris or Joe Biden on their foreign policy stance around the genocide currently happening in Gaza, there are some accomplishments domestically that are worth noting that many people are breezing right past. And I'd consider them, rather than just a reason to vote against Trump, it is a good reason to vote for Kamala Harris. Should I go into my list of the Biden administration accomplishments?
Absolutely.
I'm mostly just talking the great big ones here, but, skimming over things, Obama oversaw regulation that made workers, making up to $47,000 a year entitled to time and a half overtime pay. Very good. We love building up the middle class, but under Trump, this threshold was dropped down to $35,000 a year. And it has yet to be finalized, but Biden's Department of Labor has made a move that would increase the threshold by $20,000 to $55,000 and would include a mechanism that would automatically raise that threshold every 3 years to account for inflation, which is just huge for building up the middle class. We need overtime pay, not just for people below the poverty line. We need it for everyone, all of the middle class, if we want it to continue to exist. His infrastructure bill is an enormous accomplishment. It's $1 trillion into building up our roads, bridges, and railways, which is huge. You know, you ever hear on the news about a bridge collapsing, or ever you ever look outside and see all the potholes and think, man, this sucks. This plan is dumping an enormous amount of money into fixing all of those problems, so we don't have any more of those disasters, and so that you can drive on a smooth fucking road on your way to work. Lord knows, when I'm going to work and I'm already having not a good day, it just pisses me off even more to run over a pothole. So yeah, that's good. The CHIPS Act allocates federal funding towards the manufacturing of semiconductor chips in America, so domestically, rather than continuing to rely on China for importing that, which is huge. We need to build up American manufacturing desperately, and we need to stop relying on countries like China that primarily use slave labor to produce these things. And also, building up American manufacturing is another thing that is absolutely fantastic for building up the middle class. The Inflation Reduction Act is going to reduce the federal deficit. It's going to promote the production of certain goods domestically, and it's going to limit the cost of prescription drugs, all of which is awesome. I'd also just like to throw in there that we have a lot of evidence to support the idea that the economy in a president's first term is more reflective of the policies of the previous president than it is of the policy of the current president. So Trump rode the wave that Obama had started and proceeded to tank the economy, and Biden hasn't been in office long enough for those policies to make a big difference yet. But if Kamala Harris continues on with Biden's legacy on economic policy and continues on with her much more progressive policies, which I will get into, it will work. There's no simple and easy fix for the economy. There's no quick fix. It doesn't exist. It's just something that takes time and patience and consistency. And what we don't need is for Trump to swoop back in and tank it again. So I might as well get into Kamala Harris's list of goals. She's advocating for mortgage assistance, tax credits for parents of newborns, which is huge, bans on price gouging for basic necessities, which is huge. That is a lot of the impact that the average everyday person is feeling on their wallet these days is because of price gouging in grocery stores. And this would fix that, which is very good. She has a track record. Especially considering a lot of Biden's detractors are complaining about how expensive everything is. Yes. She has a track record of supporting a raise in taxes on individuals making over $400,000 a year, from 21% to 35%, which is extremely progressive. Biden only supported a raise from 21% to 28%, so hers is significantly higher. And she's also advocating for cutting taxes for the middle class, which is fabulous. We love it. And she's also planning on funneling she's planning on funneling more money into domestic energy sources rather than relying on oil from foreign countries, which again, really big stuff. We don't want to be relying on imports from China for everything. We don't want our economy to hinge on, imports from other countries. That's just a recipe for disaster. So having this energy being produced domestically is huge. It's excellent. It's a great move. And sorry I'm moving through this really, really fast, but, a lot to get through, short attention spans. So I'm gonna dive right into Trump's track record now.
Can I talk about his policies first?
Well, I'm
Project
going to talk about his track record,
okay,
then you talk about his policies going
Then
forward.
I'll talk about Project 2025. Go on.
So, of course, he has a history of kissing up to brutal dictators such as Kim Jong Un and Vladimir Putin. Just please, look it up. Look at what his words are. Look at it. Do you support Kim Jong Un in his absolutely brutal dictatorship of North Korea? Probably not. Yeah, that's...
And it goes beyond diplomacy.
Yes. Way beyond
direct expressions
diplomacy.
of admiration.
Yes.
We're all for diplomacy.
Yes.
But not admiration of foreign dictators.
Yes. He's straight up kissing ass. Also, Trump slashed access to overtime pay during his term, like I mentioned before, and Project 2025 includes plans that would functionally make it legal for employers to withhold overtime altogether. I don't need to explain to you why that's terrible. If we want to build up the middle class, it's a good idea to pay them for their fucking work. Yeah, it's not good. Of course, he has his history of undermining the democratic process and the peaceful transfer of power by continuously bitching and moaning about how elections were stolen from him with no evidence and causing situations where there was an enormous amount of violence, like the January 6th insurrection. He had a very passive response to the COVID-19 epidemic, which obviously caused an enormous loss of life here in America, as well as an enormous damage to the economy. I don't think I need to explain why that's bad. There were things that he could have done to prevent it, but instead, he chose the path of least resistance by rather than telling people that they should take precautions, rather than acting quickly to enact travel bans, he just did nothing, and it caused the horrible situation that we all saw. So people love to say, when they talk about how much they like Trump, they love to talk about his tax cuts. It's important for us to go into the details of these tax cuts, and then maybe you will change your mind about how good they actually are. So he had tax cuts averaging more than $60,000 for the top 1% of Americans, and only $500 for the bottom 60% of American taxpayers. Obviously, that's incredibly disproportionate. $500 off in taxes isn't going to do much to help the average American working class person. You don't need me to tell you that. His tax cuts for the top 5% totaled more than 3 times the amount for people in the bottom 60%. And failed to to top it all off, it failed to deliver the promised economic benefits. And of course, Project 2025, which I will now hand off to you, Demigloom.
Alrighty. Project 2025 is a political policy directive developed by the Heritage Foundation, which the University of Pennsylvania describes as one of the most influential public policy organizations in the United States. With contributions from dozens of conservative groups, it serves as a political initiative platform to be enacted under the pretext of Donald Trump's re-election in 2025. But Demigloom, Donald Trump has already distanced himself from Project 2025. According to ABC News, Project 2025 contributors include a number of high-ranking officials from Trump's first administration, including former White House advisor Pete Navarro and former Housing and Urban Development Secretary Ben Carson. Recently released recording of Russell Vought, a Project 2025 author and the former director of Trump's Office of Management and Budget, showed Vought saying Trump's very supportive of what we do. He said Trump was only distancing himself because Democrats were making a boogeyman out of the document. Project 2025 itself is functionally a platform that endorses or pushes for Christian nationalism, horrendous abortion bans, and plenty of disgusting policies that I unfortunately don't have enough time to get into. But since our audience is mostly comprised of trans and queer people, I felt the need to talk about, make some highlights of the transgender issues, how it frames transgender issues. Project 2025 calls to reverse policies that allow transgender individuals to serve in the military. Says gender dysphoria is incompatible with the demands of the military service, and use for public monies for transgender surgeries or to facilitate abortion for service members should be ended. It calls to rescind regulations prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status, and sex characteristics. The president should direct agencies to rescind regulations interpreting sex discrimination provisions as prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status, sex characteristics, etc. This is a big deal. It functionally legalizes discrimination against transgender people or people on the basis of sexual orientation and sex characteristics or gender identity.
Oh, can I just throw in there? Trump also reversed Obama-era legislation that made it illegal to medically discriminate against people for being queer. So Biden has now reinstated that Obama-era legislation, but essentially what that move did was it made it legal for a time for a healthcare provider to deny service to someone on the basis of them being queer. So, in theory, you could have a heart attack, go to the emergency room, and they could say, no, I'm not treating this person because they're trans, and they let you die of a heart attack. Fucked up shit. So, don't go saying, we have no evidence that. Well, first of all, we have tons of evidence that he's connected to Project 2025. But even if you think that he isn't a part of Project 2025 and isn't planning on enacting it, he has a track record of slashing discrimination protections. Extremely important discrimination protections for queer people. Hello.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit. Are you done?
Yeah,
Hi.
I'm done.
Okay, sorry, that was awkward. I didn't mean to make that awkward. I'll cut that out. Indeed. Also calls Project 2025 also calls for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to promulgate. I forgot how to pronounce that.
Okay, what? Put the word in chat.
Repromulgate. It's repromulgate. It's a recording chat here.
Repromulgate, yeah.
Hold on. What does it mean again?
Maybe replace it
We're
with
real
a
people here.
Word that's
the act of promulgating again. I'm directly quoting Project 2025. I didn't just write this fancy word in my little essay and then.
Yeah.
Okay, promulgation.
Just say what it means after.
Promulgation is the formal proclamation or the declaration that a new statutory or administrative law is enacted after its final approval. Okay. Centers for Medical Care and Medicaid Services should repromulgate its 2016 decision that CMS could not issue a national coverage determination regarding gender reassignment surgery for Medicare beneficiaries. In doing so, CMS should acknowledge the growing body of evidence that such interventions are dangerous and acknowledge that there is insufficient evidence to support such coverage in state plans. Functionally banning state funding from covering transgender medical care. Do we need to get, I mean, this is for a queer audience. Do we need to get into the necessity for access to gender affirming care?
No.
Access to gender affirming care is a very pivotal part in reducing the suicide rate of the transgender community, which I would describe as a very basic national need for trans people to not kill themselves.
Blocking people's access to gender-affirming care is effectively a pro-suicide stance. So if you're pro-suicide, you're pro-voluntary euthanasia for mental health reasons, then, that's not a very conservative thing.
And from USA Today, the plan also specifically addresses LGBTQ+ issues and attacks radical gender ideology. In addition to calling for an end to the Department of Education, it suggests legislation that would forbid educators from using transgender students' names or pronouns without written permission from their guardians. It also appears to oppose same-sex marriage and gay couples adopting children by seeking to maintain a biblically based, social science reinforced definition of marriage and family. A lot to unpack in that paragraph, but first and foremost, banning the basic freedom of transgender students under the age of 18 from using their preferred name and pronouns without written permission from their potentially abusive, unsupportive family members is insane. Basic social transitioning, like using my preferred name and pronouns in high school, I can describe as like a very, 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 very important step in finding that life worth living that we're all looking for. the basic freedoms for people to socially transition are under attack, and it's very sad.
And
very sad that this is a legitimate policy position.
yes. And for those of you who hear, oh, social transition, and you don't know what that means, of which I'm sure there are very few of you, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway, just in case. Social transition is just going by a new name and pronouns, maybe getting a haircut, maybe a new outfit or two. There is absolutely nothing permanent about it. There's no surgery, there's no hormones, there's no nothing. It is only the social aspects of gender, purely. So this is the kind of thing where someone could do it, figure out that it's not for them, and then they could continue on as normal with their life. It's potentially life-saving.
Absolutely. Yeah, so if you're queer and you're refusing to vote for Kamala Harris, just know that you're functionally voting against basic protections for young queer people, including the right to socially transition in school before the age of 18. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have for Project 2025. I recommend people, if not reading the document, doing the actual document itself. It's like 300 something pages, which is, pretty long. Pretty long and pretty dry. I gotta say, not a great read. I tried reading it. Very boring stuff, but it's very frightening as well.
It's enough.
And if you read Project 2025 and you're not scared, there's something wrong with you.
It's worthwhile to read, but if you don't have that kind of time or energy on your hands, it's enough to just read excerpts that other people have assembled. What I mentioned about overtime pay is just horrible for working people in America, the middle class. And essentially, if you support trans people's right to exist, and if you believe that what other people do with their bodies and their lives isn't any of your business, then Project 2025 is not the legislation for you. Especially if you are a queer person or if you are a working class person. I encourage everyone to please look into it more than just what we've told you here today.
Yeah. I mean, if you believe in basic civil protections and liberties for transgender people, Project 2025 is not for you, especially if you're transgender yourself. And a reminder that by not voting for Kamala, your inaction is potentially allowing Donald Trump to be reelected and these policies to be enacted.
Yep.
Well,
who are you voting for, Demigloom?
I'm voting for Kamala Harris.
Oh my gosh, we have so much in common. I'm also voting for Kamala Harris. Wow. Just put it in your calendar, Tuesday, November 5th. I can't go state by state and go and talk about all of their regulations, but if you live in Wisconsin, like we do, you can request an absentee ballot up until October 31st. That's the cutoff. That's for if you can't vote in person. That would make it so that you could vote by mail or in person early. You can go online to see if you're registered to vote very easily. Just look up, am I registered to vote, and the state that you're in. And they all have services that will be able to either get you registered to vote online, tell you where your polling place is, tell you about specifics around absentee ballots and voting early, all of that good stuff. Please vote. This has the potential to be one of the most important elections in American history, and most likely the most important election of our lifetimes. Please vote. Yeah, I don't have a lot more to say.
Yeah, what they said. Vote.
I'll just reiterate that if you're listening to all of this and you're like, why aren't you talking about Gaza? Go to the Gaza episode. Please watch it. Listen to it. We go into that whole issue much, much more in depth. And the conclusion to that episode is still, you should vote for Kamala Harris if you care about Palestinians. Yeah. You ready for plugs?
We don't do plugs anymore. We just got links in the description. Okay. If that's okay with you.
I just want to throw in that if you want to talk about this more, you should join our Discord server, and I will sit down and talk about it with you. Yeah, I'm open to civil conversation always. Well, not always, but as long as I'm not too tired and as long as I'm feeling up for it, I would love to sit down and talk to you if you disagree. Hi, this is me from the future. I realized that I should have included this, but forgot to at the time. If you want more evidence that Trump is a real-life actual fascist, he recently said, about the police, he said, "See, we have to let the police do their job, and they have to be extraordinarily rough. You know, if you had one day, like one real rough, nasty day, one rough hour, and I mean real rough, the world will get out and it will end immediately. End immediately. You know, it'll end immediately." So he's calling for one day where the police are, quote, really rough, and really nasty. This, with the context of what he was talking about, he was referencing looting that was happening during the George Floyd protests. We can draw this back to a historical example of something that happened in Nazi Germany. It's referred to as the Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, where members of the Nazi Party, including the Hitler Youth, SS officers, that kind of stuff, they went around having an incredibly rough day, a really nasty day, even, where they went around beating the shit out of Jewish business owners and smashing their shit up. And it's just really, really alarming to hear someone with so much authority make a call for violence like that so clearly parallels a historical example of fascist brutality. Obviously the court system isn't perfect, our policing system isn't perfect, but it's necessary for us to rely on trials and judges and juries and sentences based on that, due process, rather than carrying out acts of violence, or a domestic military force like the police carrying out acts of violence that are undirected and not guided whatsoever by due process. That's straight up. That is fascism. That is a fascist thing that he is advocating for. And this is very recent. He has said more things that are very, very, with very clear fascist implications, and I would suggest you to look into that on your own. But this one was so recent and so aggressive that I feel that it's necessary to talk about it specifically.
Yeah, me too. Join our Discord server, linked in the description.
Comments?
Is that it? Oh, do we want to do comments?
Sure.
Okay. Nick Westbrook says, "You need to get your facts straight. Before every encounter, the people are told to get out. It's Hamas who are responsible. They shield themselves in civilian areas and are happy to let them die. Please stop. You understand little or nothing of the hate that the Islamic Brotherhood have for the Jews. Go away and learn what's really going on."
So, first of all, those evacuation orders are given out inconsistently, and often there's conflicting information from multiple sources. Like a source online will say you should evacuate, or a source online should say you should evacuate to one place, and another source will tell you to evacuate to another place, or to not evacuate at all. Just lots of conflicting information, and the places where people are evacuating to are still being bombed. People are living in tents on beaches in these far reaches of the country, and they are still having bunker busters dropped on their heads while they are starving to death and dying from treatable illnesses. You can't... I mean, imagine if you were in a situation where someone was holding your grandma hostage, and what the police did was they went in and they shot the robber and your grandma. Would you be happy? Would that be an effective delivery of justice? I'd argue no.
All right. Garbage ignorance, indoctrination, and misinformation reported for multiple breaches, including supporting and promoting terrorism.
I don't think that being against blowing up babies is supporting terrorism, but
it's kind of the opposite.
We're all entitled to our opinions. Yeah, I take a staunch anti-child murder stance.
User with a bunch of numbers and letters. Sorry, I'm not reading your whole long username. Says, "Oh, you sweet summer children. This stuff you're talking about is way worse than you even know, and it's been going on longer than you know. 1 year since October 7th? How about 80 years since the King David Hotel bombing, the attack on the USS Liberty, the assassination of Lord Moyne, the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, the assassination of Fulk Bernadotte. Zionists have been committing... Sorry, I apologize. I'm bad at pronouncing names. Zionists have been committing genocide in Palestine since the 1800s, long before modern Israel was formally founded, and it was only founded by committing terrorism against the British when they were colonial rulers. You don't go from having no country for 2,000 years to suddenly having all the most powerful empires in the world just hand you a country with a vast international conspiracy to make that happen. But for some reason, that's considered taboo to say.
That's a whole lot of assumptions rolled into one. First of all, it didn't just start, what did they say, 85 years ago? It didn't start then. It started 200 years ago.
They said in the 1800s.
Or how long did they say that the genocide was going, or I'm mixing up their words now because I don't have it directly in front of me. But this started 200 years ago, when Zionism as an idea, began gaining traction. Jews in Europe were horribly persecuted, and they wanted a place to call their own where they wouldn't be a minority and they would be safe. In and of itself, a really understandable impulse. However, it's unacceptable for that safety to come at the expense of other people's safety and freedom and liberty. So it's, I really wish these people would stop swinging in and hear me say blowing up babies is bad, killing children is bad, and have them go, "Oh, you're uneducated." I have been studying this topic for 7 years now. I've been reading about it and studying it, so it's really, like, I don't think that you need to... First of all, I don't think that you need to have that much historical knowledge to say that killing kids is bad. Second of all, even with the historical knowledge that I do have, inexcusable. I don't know what else to say. Like, yes, obviously, this started in 1945, or at least the formation of Israel did. That doesn't mean that it's any more okay to blow up kids. I'm sorry.
I don't think this person's pro-Israel. I think they're pro-Palestine.
I'm aware, but the way that they were calling us ignorant makes me think that they're pro-Hamas.
Yeah.
Killing kids is bad. Next. I'm sorry, I'm getting really heated, but it's difficult for me to stay calm when faced with stuff like this.
And also, it's bold of you to assume we know nothing about the history of Palestine.
Yeah.
Just because we chose October 7th because 1 year had passed since then.
That's a much...
if you'd actually watch the episode...
It's a much more manageable time frame to go over.
Yeah.
We'd need... I don't even know how many episodes we'd need in order to go over the entire history of it from start to finish. But
I recommend watching Mr. Beat's video about the history of Palestine. He does a very good job explaining the history of the leadership in Palestine and who controlled what parts of the land over time.
And I'd also... good recommended reading is Jimmy Carter's book, Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid. And also look into the Oslo Accords. There's a dramatization of it. If you have trouble sustaining attention on reading material, and it's a faithful dramatization. It's good information.
All right. Zero says, "You folks need to study your history. Zionists are not Jewish. I'm begging you to look into the history of their founding. They are literal Nazis, not metaphorical, literal."
No, that's not true. You can be both Jewish and a Zionist. Many of the tenets of Zionism directly oppose a lot of the tenets of the religion, Judaism. But being Jewish is still an ethnicity. It's
an ethnicity, a culture, and a religion.
Yes.
And you could be one of those three things and still be, as long as you're one of those three things, you're considered Jewish.
It's like saying Protestants aren't Christians. They're different. They believe different things than the Catholics, but they're still Christians. And calling them, like, it bugs me so much that people call Zionists Nazis, because first of all, I've never understood this obsession with comparing hardships. The Holocaust is fundamentally different than the genocide that is happening in Gaza right now. And they shouldn't be compared. And Nazi ideology is very specific. Going around throwing the word Nazi around is only counterproductive. It only makes you look like an ignoramus. Yeah, it's just, don't do that, please.
On the ACAB episode now, since we didn't read the comments for that before, are you okay going over some of the comments from that one? Okay. Not a lot of arguments, a lot of praise.
Wow.
Dreamshell121 says, glad this interview was done because I knew it was bad, but not this bad. Yeah, cops are pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's a pretty destructive force for society.
If you haven't seen that episode, go watch it, please. Thank you.
The ACAB episode was really good. Mm-hmm. Special guest, that dang dad, leftist ex-cop. Great stuff. Very interesting. Subscribed, says Severed Pighead 4141.
Happy to have you, Severed Pighead 4141. Your username is interesting.
Judifica says, I think deep down I believed that not all cops lie until I read the manifesto of Chris Dorner. Really opened my eyes. Who's that?
I think I know who he is. Hold on. I want to make sure, though.
A murderer, former LAPD officer.
We don't support murderers here. Don't support terrorists and murderers, please.
Yeah, this person's not. I don't think this person's supporting them.
Okay.
I think they're saying they read the manifesto.
Just making sure.
That open their eyes about cops. Yeah.
Whenever I hear someone promoting the manifesto of a mass murderer, I get a little nervous.
Chicky Chick says, wow, what an incredible guest and interview. As someone who is studying sociology, everything he's saying hits the nail on the head, but in a more intimate way. It gives a better insight into how police departments impact social relations by starting off with rewiring cops first. Such a lack of awareness during trainings leading to bad policy, policing, narc policy, excessive force, etc. Really great video.
You should.
Thank you, Chicky Chick.
Yeah, thank you so much. Come. So this goes for everyone, but I love talking to sociology people. Please come talk to me. I love talking.
Me too. Absolutely. This Joe Githler says, write a goddamn book, Phil, and do the entire podcast / morning show circuit. When you're done with it in 2 years, you can fill it with anonymous interviews and options for different futures. You need a book deal and an agent. It will help a lot of people, like the kids in Atlanta fighting Cop City. Times I've heard this conversation from an ex-cop. Yeah, that dang dad should write a fucking book.
He should write a
honestly.
book. But I also think that it's important to understand that publishers will be afraid to publish his message, and media organizations will be afraid to platform him. Because, as we went over in that episode, the police are a mafia and everyone's afraid of them. Information against the police is heavily repressed. So when people hear, you're a police abolitionist, oh, you must be completely off your fucking rocker. And you won't get platformed. So if anyone's like, why is he appearing on YouTube rather than the morning show, or, getting a book published and getting it sold in Barnes & Noble, that's why.
Catherine Howard says, I clicked for That Dang Dad, but I stayed through the end, and I have a couple of other of your pods added to my playlist. Edit, my dad is a former cop. He was on the force most of my life, and it's been an interesting time. Excuse me, I have the hiccups. Time going from tactic supporter to abolitionist myself. Yeah, that can be extremely hard if your dad, or if, someone who you love dearly is participating in something that you've come to find that you personally believe is unethical. I know I've gone through that journey myself. My father being a white supremacist and a Republican. And I want to just say I'm proud of you for coming to your own conclusions and not just dogmatically adhering to what you heard in your household, because that's what most people do. It requires a certain amount of strength and resilience to be able to do that. So I applaud you.
I also applaud you.
And thank you for listening to our episodes.
Yeah, thank you so much for the support.
We appreciate every single one. A lot of comments. Lot more comments. When somebody said, Howlin' Wolf says pronouns. Okay, then I'm out. We have pronouns. They don't want to hear us out.
Oh no. Well, I think it's always good to hear people out. Even if they disagree with you. But I suspect this person isn't listening to me saying that right now, so it'll be of no use to them.
Hive Indicator says, y'all did so well on actually asking unique questions. Been watching Phil since the Eyeball Zone. Learned so much about both him and cop culture. Top notch. They said, OMG, was typing as you read out the 1488 correction. That's the funniest thing ever. Since you asked for suggestions, I want to say Dan McLellan here on YouTube, PhD in cognitive science and religion. He has a scholarship to back up arguments against the phobes who hide behind apologetics. He's a busy guy, but seems to make time to help marginalized communities. I'll definitely put that in my notes.
Thank you.
That Dang Dad says, thanks again for having me on.
Wow! We love you, That Dang Dad.
Indeed. Sawyer says, Riley and Mo wished their podcast was this good. Where's Riley? Who is this? Edit. This has become very profound and educational. I'm more concerned and cautious around cops. Not even going to say hi to them anymore.
You should still play nice to cops.
Yeah.
Because not doing so could get you killed. As established in that episode, many of them are all wound up in trigger happy and very egotistical. So please, 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 be nice to cops when you see them in your everyday life. When they do a traffic stop, do not be openly hostile to them. Be polite. Kiss ass to them, even. It could keep you alive. And it could also save the lives of people around you, since there are many instances of them firing into fucking crowds of people and apartment buildings with innocent people sleeping in them and people in cars who are entirely innocent. Just play nice, please.
That's another thing we could have talked about earlier, is Trump basically advocating for outright police brutality.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about granting federal immunity.
So we have to go back and add this. We have to talk about how he was literally advocating for a Kristallnacht. But let's keep going with comments, and then we can add that.
Kasemi and Kant, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Cops serve a political purpose to protect the powerful. They only bully poor people and those without power. They are essentially a private army for the rich. That's why the bullies are protected. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's the only thing the only responsibility cops are given, but that's a big part of their role in society. Mm-hmm. Sonic the Centipede said, this episode made me really sad. I forgot that everything political ostensibly boils down to an inescapable, all-consuming black hole of misery that there's no crawling out of. Anyways, fucking amazing episode. I was legitimately crying of joy at the end because this show is so fucking good, and I'm so happy it's back. Name change suggestion 1, MSGSA. Making sad girls smile again. God damn.
That's really nice. But I just want to throw it out there that hope is not lost until you lose hope. Everyone needs to keep fighting. Everyone needs to go vote. Everyone needs to keep doing their advocacy and helping however they can. I don't know what else to say. As long as you're still fighting, the fight is not lost.
I believe it was Corey Taylor, the frontman of Slipknot, who said there is no such thing as a dead cause so long as one person still believes in it. I'm pretty sure more famous people have also said very similar things, but I was at a mental hospital and somebody wrote that quote on a whiteboard and attributed it to Corey Taylor, and I was like, that's kind of true.
True.
Last one I'm going to read. Aaron also commented, alright, since you delusional fucks brought it up, I identify as a honey badger and my pronoun is badass. If you respect mine, I'll respect yours. Deal badass. Deal honey badger. I think badass has a right to be to their pronoun.
I mean, Demigloom, you already know how I feel about extremely abstract and goofy neopronouns. I'll they them you if you want me to, but I'm not gonna call you that. Yeah, go watch our neopronouns episode. Actually don't. That was a horrible episode.
No, it was pretty good.
Well, it was good for you. It wasn't good for me because I was unprepared.
Yeah, fair. No, I also have grown more sympathetic to your side of that argument, although I do still hold my general stance. Well, who knows? Maybe in 2 years I'll be on your side fully.
Yeah.
It's usually how it goes when me and you argue about something. All right. Felonious Ferris, do you have anything else to say about the election before we head out?
No.
Alrighty. Well, goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Vote.
Vote for Kamala.
Please.
Transgenders for Kamala.
True.